first saw a two-tone Rolex Datejust, it was love at first sight. I especially liked the vintage models with engine-turned bezels, and then I went to New York City and got hands-on with a Grand Seiko shunbun cherry blossom. The only problem was that I didn't have $12,000 just laying around for me to buy both the Grand Seiko and the Rolex Datejust. So when I saw this beautiful pink dial on Namoki's website and a two-tone Datejust-esque case, I just had to build it. Now the real question is, should you buy parts off Namoki? So after building this watch, I found myself reaching for it day in and day out. It just yearned to be on my wrist. And I think that part of the reason that this yearning occurred really comes down to the design and the nuance with the design. The way I see it is that from afar, it looks like I grabbed my grandfather's watch out of his drawer and just slapped it on my wrist with this old two-tone-esque case. And when you look at it from a medium-ish distance, you'll notice that it has this beautiful pink dial, but the thing is you can't really tell the texture at this point, and I might just be hallucinating here, but it sort of reminds me of the Tudor Black Bay Chrono, especially with those circular indexes. But then when you hold it up really close, you can see the texture of that pink Sakura dial. And then I am reminded of me walking into the Grand Seiko boutique and finally getting my hands on a Grand Seiko shunbun cherry blossom with that light pink dial. Now, one thing I do want to mention in this review, just to fully disclose it, is that Namoki did send me these parts and I don't have to send them back, but as always, they don't have any input on this video, so my thoughts are completely my own. The watch is polished on the center links. It has a mixture of polishing on the center and bezel, and it's also polished on the flanks of the watch, but the rest of it is brushed, which I really do appreciate. However, I will be getting on to some of the cons I find with the brushing, especially on those male end links. It is vertically brushed throughout the case, outside of the aforementioned areas that it's polished, and I think that they did a pretty good job with the polishing. Nothing stellar, but when you're modding watches, you're not looking for craftsmanship at its finest in terms of the parts, you're just looking for really good quality parts. One thing I am a fan of is the fact that this has brushed lugs. Funnily enough, I was scrolling through my comments and someone mentioned that they really don't like polished lugs. I hadn't been able to put my finger on why I didn't particularly like the design of my AliExpress build, and I think it actually does come down to the polished lugs. So I really do appreciate that the lugs are polished, but in my dislikes category, I'm also going to talk about something I dislike about these particular lugs. Although it is a slightly controversial movie, I personally found American Psycho to be an interesting movie, to say the least, and whether that be good or bad, this sort of reminds me of Christian Bale's watch in the movie, his Psycho Seiko. This comes at 44 millimeters from lug to lug, 36 millimeters in diameter, 9.2 millimeters in thickness without the crystal, and about 12 millimeters in thickness with the crystal, and a strapaholic 20 millimeters in lug width. So in terms of the weight distribution on wrist, I've been wearing this for about a week and a half, and it's been extremely comfortable. One of the points of reference I have for a faux Jubilee bracelet is from Pagani Design, and their watches links, the inner parts of the links, they're unfinished, they're unrefined, and they tend to scrape the inside of your wrist. And I'm so glad that Namoki didn't have this problem. Their bracelets are very, very, very comfortable. These links articulate, they don't get stuck like some other budget watches do. These have drilled lugs. Good job, Namoki. It makes taking off a bracelet so much easier. And also, I really do like the adjustable clasp. This is not the best type of clasp in my personal opinion. Personally, I'd rather have a quick micro adjust on my bracelets, but this is so much better than some of the faux Rolex style Jubilee bracelet clasps you get. They don't give you adjustment holes on the outside of the clasp, so you have to dig in there, use floss, and make it fit your wrist, because trust me, I've been there, it's not fun. If you're enjoying this video, I would recommend hitting that like and subscribe button, and just starting a conversation in the comment section down below. All of these things are free, but they really help out the channel. I have a 5 5% discount code. If you use TimeTicker5 on Namoki's website, I'll just put this all in the description down below. Those are affiliate links, so I will get a little bit of commission, but at no extra cost to you. Now, usually I make a big deal about the build process because usually things go horribly wrong for some reason. But with this watch, it actually didn't go that badly. I think I had a good experience with this whole build process. And in fact, there was no real problems outside the fact that I think I scraped part of the dial, which resulted in a scratched indice, but it's not that noticeable. And Namoki did send me over a Triton secondhand that was yellow, and this is completely my fault. For some reason, I thought, hey, yellow and gold would go well together, but they really didn't. So I didn't use that Triton secondhand, so I stuck with the stock hands in this handset kit. So yeah, overall parts were really high quality. I really do appreciate Namoki for paying that extra attention to detail with their parts. I think that although they're not the most intricate parts, they're not the most luxurious, they definitely offer some of the higher quality parts that I've seen, at least compared to some of their competitors and AliExpress, obviously. This has an NH36 powering it, and you're probably wondering, why are you using an NH36? This doesn't have a day aperture, but I actually wanted to use this for another build. It was just kind of insurance. If I didn't particularly like this dial, then I would get another dial that would have a day aperture. But I really enjoy this dial, the way it fits this entire watch, so I don't think I'm gonna change it out. But one thing you should keep in mind is that I will get to one of the drawbacks of this particular NH36. So this also has a sapphire crystal. I wish that the sapphire crystal was not raised above the bezel, because that just means it's more prone to scratching, and I know sapphire crystals don't scratch that easily, but still, I wish that the bezel was slightly raised above that crystal. And also, this is made of steel. Additionally, I kind of wish that that sapphire crystal was boxed, just to add more of that vintage charm to this watch. I keep saying particular. I believe this is C3 lume, and it's all green, so it all fits together. The legibility is quite good, considering that the hands are a different color than the dial indices, but just overall, you can read it from different angles. It's not that hard. One of the purposes of this video is to try to just show you what Namoki has in their catalog, the variety of parts outside of their pre-made build kits. One thing that I did notice is that they had regulated movements, so I was really excited to check out the regulated movements. I was thinking, well, I know everyone keeps telling me to regulate movements, but I strongly believe I'm gonna break a movement. I just don't want to do that. So I was so excited when they had this option, because I thought I can finally get a super accurate NH movement. Unfortunately, this NH36 runs around plus 10 seconds per day, which is actually worse than some of my non-regulated movements from Namoki, actually. This might just be a lemon, but that's something to keep in mind. Currently, I'm not that big of a fan of curved lugs, and that sounds really strange because you think you want a watch that conforms to your wrist and looks organic and symbiotic with you, but right now I'm really into angular design, but that's always prone to change, so that's something you should probably take with a grain of salt. And I guess this is sort of a minor gripe, and it's that I wish that the dial indices outer rings were gold and not silvery, because in the product photos it did look a lot more gold than silver, and also the dial looked a little bit more gold than pink, which is something you should definitely keep in mind when you're scrolling on Namoki's website. I would definitely just recommend checking out a photo of the real thing in person on someone's wrist or on a table, not just their product photos. This crown didn't end up screwing down properly to this case. There is kind of a gap, and for some reason, after I cut the crown stem even more, the crown ended up being further away from the case than when I didn't cut it to the right length. So that's something that I weirdly experienced. The major gripe I have with this particular watch, which is not too big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, are the polished end links. So I'm not really a big fan of male end links just in general, and I'm really not a big fan of Jubilee style bracelets with male end links, and also adding salt to the wound. The center polish link of these end links are so much more polished than the rest of the center links on the bracelet, so it ends up looking a little bit dissonant, it ends up looking a little bit cheap. I wish that they kept the polishing the same between the two. After putting it all together, I realized that the engine turned bezel and these sort of markings on the bezel don't align with the dial. And it's not obvious, but when you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's just something that gets on my nerves a little bit. I think that over time, reviewing a few watches and getting my hands on some watches, I've become a lot more critical of watches and just nitpicking and stuff, considering that my major gripe with this watch is just a minor thing, and considering that you can avoid that by just buying another bracelet. I mean, this isn't a really big gripe, and case not being aligned with the dial is something I probably could have fixed, because maybe the movement is not properly aligned. It's probably my fault. The big question you came here for, should you buy from Namoki's website? And my answer is yes. I mean, every single time I've built a Namoki watch, it's ended up well. Only one time did I actually break something, which was the seconds hand on my first ever build, so was not Namoki's fault at all. But honestly, their parts are really high quality. The experience of building a watch is almost second to none in this whole watch hobby. Just being able to put something together and say that you made it yourself, say that you designed a watch yourself, and being able to look down on your watch and say, yeah, that's truly mine. Now, I think Namoki really focuses on the parts themselves compared to some other companies which focus on the experience. In terms of being a beginner, I would still recommend buying a watch kit if you're unsure if the parts are compatible, even though they make it really clear. Just in case, maybe go for a watch kit. If you are interested in watching the other 5 watches I've built, feel free to click on one of the videos over here. They've been pretty fun videos to make. I hope that this watch channel patina's like your favorite watch, and I'll see you on another episode on the Time Ticker.